Thank you all for joining us this morning. Before taking questions, I'd like to make a brief announcement regarding the Baltimore City Tax Structure Review Group that my administration is convening, effective immediately. In partnership with the city's Department of Finance, a group of 20 individuals representing the city's residents, economists, not-for-profit, and foundation leaders will work together through 3 two-hour meetings to share their expertise and insights on Baltimore City's tax structure. I've asked the group to place specific emphasis on our property tax rate. Early next year, they will present my administration with recommendations on areas where we can move forward with possible additional tax relief, as well as provide an analysis of how the city's tax rates, a tax base, and design compare to other counties and municipalities. This work is critical to my goal of growing Baltimore City by 10,000 families over the next decade. In order to grow a city, we know that we have to both attract new residents, but most importantly, we have to give those residents who are already here more reasons to stay. In order for Baltimore to be in the best position for future growth, we have to constantly ask ourselves, are we doing everything possible to compete for those 10,000 families, both new and old? Without a doubt, we have to work to make our tax infrastructure, we have to work at making our tax infrastructure more competitive with surrounding municipalities as well as places throughout the country, so that families outside of this city see Baltimore as an attractive destination, and families already here feel like they can afford to stay. I want to talk also about the fact that we had to do a lot. When I became mayor, many of you know this, I was gifted a huge a huge budget deficit, and had to make some pretty tough decisions in order to close that gap. We started with making cuts and creating efficiencies within city government, and then when we felt that we could make no more cuts, we had to raise fees and taxes to get us through the Great Recession. And I know that since I took office, we've come a long way. And while recovering from the recession, we've made progress in cutting property taxes more than in any time in recent history. And we've provided new funding for infrastructure investment. We've invested millions in blight elimination and education, reduced the structural deficit by more than half, cutting our unfunded liabilities by more than $300 million. And we know that employment for our residents is improving slowly. And I'm very proud that after seeing the work that we've done, the way in which we have fought through the recession with fiscal responsibility, with an eye on the future, our bond rating has increased. We put money away in our rainy day fund so that if the next recession comes, Baltimore is more prepared than we were the last time. I think it's hard to, you will be hard pressed to find another city in the country that has even managed to accomplish half of these things while recovering from the recession. We should be very, very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. But at the, when you take a look around the country, you'd be hard pressed to find any place that's done even half. But I don't know of any other city that's done all the things we've done, including the pension reforms and healthcare reforms, all at the same time. But you should know one thing about me is I'm never satisfied with what we've done. I'm always pushing to do more and to be better. And in order to keep our city moving forward, it makes sense that we assess our tax competitiveness. We have to look for areas where we might be able to provide more relief, and while moving forward in a fiscally responsible fashion. So now I'd like to bring up my finance team to speak a little bit about the group, as well as some agenda items that we'll be looking into. And I'll turn it over to Finance Director Henry Raymond.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. I'm Henry Raymond, Finance Director. I'm joined with Andrew Klein, the City Budget Director. In terms of the work committee, it will be a group of 20 individuals with varied backgrounds. It includes developers, real estate agents, business leaders, leaders from the nonprofit arena, as well as foundations. This group will be tasked with looking at the city's present tax structure, doing a review of our historical tax base, reviewing recommendations from the previous 2008 Blue Ribbon tax report to determine what progress has been made on the implementation of those recommendations. Also to determine what future initiatives we can undertake given our shift in Baltimore's local economy. We've shifted from a manufacturing and transportation, trade, and utility economy to more of a knowledge-based economy made up of information technology, service industry, healthcare service arena, tourism, and hospitality, as well as education. So we need to determine whether our present tax structure is appropriate given the shift in Baltimore City's local economy. We know that there's a disproportionate burden in our present tax structure as it relates to homeowners and businesses. It's borne out by a variety of states by the state, and it's related to our real property tax rate and income tax rates. So we need for this group to do a complete review to determine what changes need to be made with our tax structure to support the mayor's 10-year financial plan, to support the mayor's vision for growing the city by 10,000 residents and making Baltimore City a more financially sustainable city for the future. And there are a number of things that they'll be looking at that are related to the economy. For example, we have a significant increase in the number of commuters that commute into the city for employment. A large percentage of our assessable tax base is not taxed because of nonprofit status. So these are just a few examples of the type of things that the group will be looking at. And I'd ask Mr. Klein if you have anything to add.
No.
Okay.
Happy to answer questions.
Mr. Klein, what were the amount of fees and taxes outside of property taxes that the city has been receiving? I believe around 2012 you had a chart of around, was it 60 million or something of the fees and surcharges that were coming to the city, some of a result of that 2008 Blue Ribbon. What were those numbers?
Not sure exactly what you're referring to, but we rely on property tax and income tax for nearly 70% of general fund revenue. So that's where a lot of the action is, and as Director Raymond mentioned, those taxes fall on our residents, on our businesses, and we have an economy now that exports 80,000 jobs to the surrounding communities in terms of people, the net number of people who come to the city to work as opposed to leaving the city every day to work. And
what about there were taxes such as the cell phone taxes and a lot of others?
Yeah, you may be referring to the 2010 revenue package.
Yes.
We were facing at that time $120 million budget shortfall, 185 if you include the pension cliff we were facing. And that was, the second year in a row we faced that kind of a deficit. And as the mayor mentioned, after exhausting, efficiencies and service reductions and other measures to bring the revenues and expenditures into line, we proposed a package of revenue enhancements, which we weren't happy about. One effect was that it did add some diversity to our revenue portfolio. So we became a little bit less reliant on just a couple of revenue sources.
How much do those accumulate in the current fiscal year? What are we talking about?
That's still running around $50 million.
From the 2010 package?
Yes.
So what did that include? That included
That included increase the income tax to this, the state cap. We introduced the beverage container tax. We increased the energy and telecommunications tax, parking tax, also parking fees and fines. So we increased the hotel tax at that time, 40% of which goes to Visit Baltimore. So that has been supporting hospitality and tourism, as well as helping us to balance the budget.
the energy tax and the communication tax are already on the books.
Yeah, we increased the rates, yes.
And there's transfer taxes, have they been increased for property?
Those rates have not, transfer and recordation tax rates have not been increased.
And then the speed camera was a major component to all that.
Yeah, that was state legislation that allowed for the speed cameras.
Last time I looked at the comprehensive financial statements, the property tax revenues were dropping. Is that still, are they still dropping? Like the total revenues you're collecting, is that trend still continuing? Or?
The revenue is beginning to pick back up. We did have a drop in fiscal 13, 14, but we're expecting some increase in 15.
You said that residents and businesses pay a disproportional share of the tax burden. Would you say that residents are hit harder than businesses?
Yeah, I think that's something that this group is going to take a look at. We need a tax structure that is adequate to meet the needs of the city, to fund city services, but also want to make sure it's stable so we don't see a lot of volatility, minimize that as much as possible as the economy changes, and also that it's fair across similarly situated taxpayers.
Right, horizontal and vertical equity.
Right.
Now, is the goal here to come up with revenue neutral recommendations, decrease revenue, increase revenue? What are you looking at?
I think at a minimum.
Let's say everything is on the table.
Yeah.
Mayor, let me ask you a couple of questions. So the election last week seems to be the shot across the bow for politicians all over the country. Was this something you were already thinking of? I would assume it is, but when did,
I would have to be very skilled in order to put this together since last Tuesday.
What message did you take from last Tuesday?
That's a tough question. Related to what?
Related to, obviously the Republican, Mr. Hogan, ran almost solely focused on taxes and fees and the economy. Was solely focused. And so he won handily in a very blue state. So what, and I know you talked about this last week too, but based on this, where you're really acknowledging that, the whole structure in Baltimore City, is this at all tied to what voters seem to be doing?
I think it will be impossible for the media not to tie it to that. I will say that I think it's clear that the thoughtfulness with which this is moving forward is clear that this wasn't done overnight. This is something that we've been working on. It is being released now, and we're starting to do the public work because we've gotten to that point. This is something that has been part of my administration. How do we create efficiencies? How do we create the tax competitiveness? This is a recurring theme of my administration. That was part of the 10-year plan. It was part of my plan to reduce property taxes 20 cents by 2020. We've been doing this work, and I think that because of the fact that we've seen progress in reducing the structural deficit, we started this work of creating this work group because I think it was time, as we have started to see some positive signs in the economy and nationally, regionally, and in our city, to take a look at our tax structure and to see if there are things that we can do better to strengthen our position and to put us in a position to retain residents and attract more residents.
Where does reducing the cost come into play?
It is a a theme that I talk about all the time, that I think part of everything I do in my administration is about creating not just an effective city, but an efficient city. And I think that my record on reducing the size of government reflects that.
But is this panel charged with that? I mean, mostly, you do have a couple of folks on here that probably have some knowledge about all of that, Brookings Institution, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, is that a specific charge of this panel as they make recommendations to say?
Mr. Raymond had it correct when he said that everything is on the table. We want to take a look at the tax structure, about our competitiveness. If that conversation develops, or that that topic is something that is introduced to the conversation, I'm sure that the group will share their views on the size of government, and we'll take that into consideration.
Mayor, have you spoken to Mr. Hogan yet?
Yes.
And what did you discuss? Taxes or anything like that?
No, we didn't discuss.
What did you discuss?
We talked about the importance of Baltimore to the economy of the state. We talked about the fact that Baltimore's success and the state's success are integrally linked. So I think I got the sense in our conversation that he understands how important Baltimore is to the success of Baltimore is to the success of his administration.
Do you talk about the red line?
No.
Mayor, if everything's on the table, there's been that sort of proposal floated around at the surface of the council under Stokes about, reducing the property tax 1% like cities like Boston and San Francisco did 30 years ago, and then making up the revenue because people move in. Is that going to be on the table, that sort of idea that's been floated around?
I think everything is on the table. I think that's an idea that's been floated around in the Blue Ribbon panel before, correct? So
correct.
Again, we're going to be taking a look at all of those proposals.
Excuse my stupidity again.
You shouldn't be so hard on yourself.
Oh, I'm not hard. It's not me, trust me. But, and I'm only asking because the Blue Ribbon, the last one in 2008 was before I even moved to the Baltimore area. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're studying the same issues that they studied 6 years ago.
No, I think it's important to revisit some of those proposals, but that's not the entire work. I think it would be incomplete if the work group didn't take a look at those proposals to see if there's some things were, we moved forward with some things were left on the table. I think it's important to take a new look, a fresh set of eyes on those proposals to see if any of them which didn't see the light of day when they were initially proposed have any new life in the new economic conditions that we're having. So yes, it is. We will be taking a look, but that's not at all.
It's not a do-over.
It is not a recreation of that work. It is a complete review, including the proposals that were made in 2008. Now, that wasn't a stupid question.
What about the question of audits, which gets into some of these questions? What is the progress the city's made in terms of auditing the 12 other city agencies that's mandated under the charter?
Do you have an update? Because I can get you an update. I don't have one.
Yes.
Do you have one?
Yes. As it relates to the quadrennial agency audits, the external audit firms are being brought in for final instructions this week. Agency heads selected for the first round of audits have been previously notified and will be updated within the next couple of weeks. Our goal is to present this information to the Board of Estimates before the end of December.
And that would be a timetable of what city agencies would be audited? Is that your goal?
I don't understand the question.
Is the goal of your material that you're going to send to the Board of Estimates is exactly what? To present to them a timetable of what agencies and when they'll be done?
No. What we will be presenting to the Board of Estimates will be the specific vendors and the dollar amounts for the engagements to perform the audit of the selected agencies.
And have you selected those agencies, the first group, yet?
Yes.
And who are they?
The Department of Finance, Department of Public Works, the Police Department, Department of Recreation and Parks, and I apologize, the fifth one is escaping me at the moment.
And they will be audited in 2015?
I apologize, Department of Transportation.
2015 they would be audited, is that the schedule?
Beginning in calendar 15, as soon as Board of Estimates approval is obtained.
They need to be finished by 2016 by law.
December of 2016, so we have approximately 2 years to perform the 12 audits of the 12 agencies.
Now, some may say, why do we need another task force? We have a 10-year plan, we have a blue ribbon task force. Why yet another one? Why can't don't we have a strategy already?
I think it's important to take a look with a fresh set of eyes on issues that are important to the city. Property tax rate, our taxing structure is important. I heard about it. I hear about it constantly. I think you have to decide how you want to get things done, and I like to do things in collaboration with impacted groups. I think when you take a look at the list of people who are a part of this review, it is leaning on the expertise that we have available in the city to help guide decisions. And at the end of the day, whatever is the result, we need buy-in from these same communities. And I have found in my time in public office, when you do things in an open way, in a transparent way, and in a collaborative way, it is the type of change that's sustainable, and it's also the type of change that's accepted.
Could we see a reduction of taxes through this group, or more taxes?
Don't say that around these two guys.
Commuter tax, or anything like that? Because
Again, everything is on the table. You know, the goal is to make us as competitive as possible while still making progress when it comes to the fiscal health of the city. We've made good progress on. You know, I've made the tough decisions to help right the ship, so we're not facing the tremendous structural deficit that we faced as I entered office. But there's still a lot more work to be done. Is there a way to restructure some of our taxes to give some relief, to make us more competitive, but at the same time making sure that we do not stray from the fiscal discipline that has allowed us the benefit of the increased bond rating?
I just want to add a question this way, Mr. Raymond. There was an Inspector General's report that said an employee had accumulated 118 days, and I know you guys have been...
I can't hear.
118 sick days or something, and I know you've been working on reforming that. So what's the process now? Can they cash all that out, or is there a limit?
So I need more information about what the specific question.
Yeah, no, I'll send it to you, because I know there was some plan to reform that. I just didn't know.
Yeah, we are. We're working on that.
Okay, all right, I'll send it.
But can I just, if you don't mind, to go back to Luke's question, I know that the notion of, we're going to have a work group to figure out how many work groups we have. The thing is, we have a lot of very pressing issues in the city, and I think it's important to tackle those issues, and I think it's also important to do it in an inclusive way. I'm not afraid of getting our hands dirty, working it out with people from the community, mixing in experts, so we can tackle these tough problems. We have to continue to press for progress, and I have seen success. In my career, seen success when we pulled this type of group together to talk about important issues, to get progress. And as long as we keep seeing positive results, I think that it is a way for us to continue to push for progress.
So these results of this work group and the others, they're not just going to sit on the shelf, because there's been a grand Maryland tradition of studying something noting the report, and then the wheels of government either grind to a halt or grind ever so slowly?
You know, I think that there have been mixed results when you have these groups. I think I make it very clear to the people who I ask to be a part of any work group that this is not for show. This is to make progress, and I ask them to hold me accountable to that pledge. And I think, you know, if you take a look around, we've made a lot of progress in the city. If you just take a look at the downtown vacancy, we did the study on the downtown office vacancy rate. We convened a group of people. You know, after we decided how many groups we wanted to have, we created one and convened them. And you know, came up with some ideas on apartment tax credits. And as a direct result of that, if you walk through the center downtown, you see cranes, you see new apartment buildings, you see people moving into the city. So you know, this is about getting work done in a collaborative way, in a way that allows us to achieve real results, and that's what I'm about.
Now, ironically, all the building and the vacancy filling hinges on what this work group is all about.
It does. That's why this is important.
Ironically.
Yeah.
This list does not include representatives of the largest nonprofits, Hopkins, for example. So that I think it's a third of the city's tax base. That used to
So
be
I'll just say that's because we have another group working.
Another pilot.
No, well.
Do you know about this?
No, it's not a task. We've been meeting with those big institutions, the same institutions that we engaged it wasn't called a pilot. What do we call it? The memorandum of understanding. Well, we did not call it that. We called it a memorandum of understanding.
Are they still in place?
Yeah, it's still in place, but we've been having conversations with them.
Those expire in 2016, is that right?
Yeah.
2016 is the last year.
So are negotiations ongoing about that?
I would say conversations.
So they pay an amount of money because they don't get taxed,
Yes.
but it's not anywhere near what they would pay in tax.
No.
Were members of those institutions not asked to be on this task force?
I don't know that, but I also know that, you know, this is about engaging different populations to get to what I want to see as a result, and we are engaging those institutions on a consistent basis. So it might not be on this group, but that engagement is happening in a serious way.
Well, they don't pay any taxes.
I know you've said everything's on the table, but you did specifically bring up the issue of commuters. Is that maybe a commuter tax? Is there anything more specific you can give us on that?
Not at this point, no.
But you said there are 80,000, these are 80,000 city residents that commute out, correct?
No, it's 80,000 is the net inflow of workers every day.
Okay, so there are
Baltimore.
80,000 people that come.
Well, more than that.
Okay, but
About 230,000, and then we have
gotcha.
others leaving the city for work.
So there's a net of 80,000 commuters into the city that don't get taxed.
Yes,
Well, they get taxed.
if they park, they do.
Yeah.
I guess if they get, oh no, that bill's been changed. Especially if they get plastic bags, they'll get taxed, I guess.
Right, and part of this is benchmarking. So I know Philadelphia, for instance, has a pretty big, I don't know exactly how it's levied, but there's a commuter tax
There
of some
is,
sort
yeah.
there. So is that kind of thing something that you'll be benchmarking?
Everything's on the table. Really, everything's on the table.
Well, let's just ask this, what's not on the table?
Everything's on the table.
No, I don't think it's fair to.
There's my definition, there's the city's definition, and there's your average voter's definition.
I'll tell you this.
Property taxes are.
I do not intend to raise property tax, but when you talk about, you know, what's on the table, what's not on the table, this is a thoughtful deliberation of the tax structure. If someone brings something to the table that we haven't thought of that's worth discussing, we're going to discuss it. So I can't really say what's not on the table. We want to have a robust conversation and a review of our tax structure.
If the governor-elect were to propose a tax reduction in Annapolis, obviously that has consequence for the city of Baltimore. If it's an income tax, I mean, has there been discussion of that, of what the city's exposure might be?
So I think it is important with the type of administration change that we anticipate to do an assessment of the city's reliance on state aid, state revenue, collaboration. We're doing all of those things to see where my administration, those points of contact and the funds attached to all of those things. So have we done I think it's premature to do an assessment of a potential income tax reduction when Governor-elect Hogan hasn't made any specific recommendations about, while he's been very clear that he believes, generally speaking, the taxes are too many and too high. I have not heard or didn't, I did not hear or I have not been made aware of any specific reductions that have been planned.
There's already a movement afoot. Some legislators are talking about trying once again to repeal the stormwater management fee. Will this task force look at that fee as part of its conversations?
I don't know if it's stormwater because it goes to the utility.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would be part of this work because this is general fund.
Right. Just as we won't be looking at the water rates and wastewater rates.
Mayor, on a related matter, the Board of Estimates deferred today the federal lobbyist agreement. Are you still planning to, is there a problem with that agreement? Are you still planning to retain the firm?
I don't have any information on that.
But your office, I think, was the group that deferred it today.
Yes, but I don't have any updates.
Okay.
Any background.
Okay.
On this task force, did I miss the, is there a date the report is expected or a goal for the report date?
We're hoping early next year. I don't know if we gave them a deadline.
Are the dates set for their meetings? You said there's 3 meetings?
I know that they're very busy people, so we know that we're trying to get an initial meeting set up, and that at that point we'll schedule out the meetings, as well as take a look at what resources they think they might need to be able to do that, the thoughtful assessment that I think needs to be done.
Maybe a work group to assess the resources.
There we go.
No difference to the public, right?
She's already on board.
I was told that the meetings will not be open to the public.
Oh no, I wasn't talking about it. I was talking about her being on board with my way of doing business. I don't know if it's required.
On whether they're open or not?
No, it would be there. We have open meeting rules that would
And so would the chair decide, or who would decide?
I don't know. So I can get back to you on what the answer to that is. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Who is the chair, Madam Mayor?
Do we have a chair? No chair. A chairless
Chairless work group.
Anthony Brown.
So,
Do you guys have questions?
as far as
Anything else?
I'm in the middle of a question.
Getting close to time where I gotta pull it. So.
I have a question about Sandra Baker, who was terminated. Does she get a pension?
I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I've been trying to get that information. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, I'm thinking because crime is important. Was important. You did a public forum and
Several.
You've done several public safety forums in the city, and thanks to the voter mandate that Governor-elect has, are you willing, or is there anything in the works that you could say as far as having a similar forum on regards to pocketbook issues?
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that, but I think that might be a good idea. I know that I do routine check-ins with residents through public safety, the forums. We also do telephone town halls. It might be a way to gauge the interest in that. We tend to use decide on the focus of those meetings based on the input that we're getting from constituents, but I think that's an important issue to at least put out there if people are interested in having more more open, town hall types of meetings about those pocketbook issues.
Mayor, you're involved with the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Slightly.
Is there a city around the country that you look at and say, wow, they're figuring out some innovative and creative ways to reduce the burden on their residents? Because our urban areas are generally higher tax.
So one of the best things for me about the Conference of Mayors is not that any one city has it all figured out, but each city has something figured out in a way that it helps bring ideas back to Baltimore and help make Baltimore better. Whether it's how to have a healthier city or a greener city, or how to increase citizen engagement. I get all types of ideas from the city. So from different mayors. So is there any city that I could say, okay, we'll just pick up and do everything they're doing and transfer it to Baltimore? No, that doesn't happen. But there are so many different programs, policies, initiatives that I do find interesting that I try to incorporate into things that we're doing in the city.
The latest on the Two Burns Arena situation that way?
Oh, I think we passed it on the council today. I think with there was an outpouring of support from the community that there have been significant improvements in the arena, and it is there have been certainly an increase in involvement in participation from the community. Is just the type of activity that we would like to see in our venues when we make those enter into those contractual relationships with outside entities, and I'm looking forward to that continuing. There's a lot of interest in sports and recreation and the types that they offer in that community, and they're offering a very good they're providing a good product in that area.
What is this idea about looking at vacant lots, turning them into flower marts? I didn't hear exactly all of the details.
Yeah, so one of the things in the Growing Green initiative, we did a sort of a competition to ask different communities to work together, almost like a work group with like landscape architects.
Was that the thing at the Arboretum?
Right.
Okay.
Were you there?
I was there.
So out of that competition, you saw there were all different types of ideas. I think one or two groups on their own came up with this concept of using so we already have the urban ag work that's happening, but the thought was to use the hoop houses and things like that as to sell flowers. I think that there's a big possibility in that work in Baltimore, and I know that so hopefully somebody will, I don't know if that was one of the ones that got funded, so hopefully that idea will take off. In Chicago, they have, Jane, to talk about ideas worth stealing. In Chicago, they have a workforce development, urban ag combined business, and I think it's a not-for-profit business that developed, I think it's called True Chicago or True Blossoms, so where they teach people to farm or cultivate flowers that create this fragrance, perfume, and I think they have like 2 or 3 different perfumes that, basically are Chicago, very Chicago, like the flowers are just like from farm to table that has a distinct taste and essence because it's grown locally. They're doing the same thing with perfumes, and I would love for us to. I feel like Baltimore smells better than Chicago, so I would love to be able to do that.
We could do one more, guys.
We were on a path to get that done, but apparently you need some type of distilling equipment to do that, and there was some thought that I was interested in distilling something other than a fragrance. So I don't know where anyone would get that.
Hasn't turned into apartments.
Yeah, I don't know where anybody would get that idea from. All right, thank you so very much.
Thank you.